Hollywood's golden age wasn't just about glitz and glam. It was a playground where the rich and famous threw some of the wildest, most jaw-dropping parties the world has ever seen. Behind the camera, private gatherings spiraled into legendary all-night affairs that would make today's celebs blush. What was really going down behind those velvet ropes? Get ready to dive into 20 classic Hollywood orgies that shocked the world, revealing a secret side of Tinseltown you never knew existed. Charlie Chaplan and Fatty Arbuckle's wild casting sessions. You think casting calls are just formal business? Not if Charlie Chaplan and Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle had anything to say about it. These two silent film giants were infamous for turning auditions into legendary after-hours parties that blurred all lines. Imagine hopeful actresses showing up to perform and ending up at a decadent gathering where the real test was a whole lot less about acting chops and way more about, well, playing along. Chaplan, known for his iconic tramp character, reportedly used unusual techniques to test women, tossing custard pies and making bizarre gestures that soon evolved into more risque antics. Arbuckle's reputation for indulgence and humor only fueled these sessions, creating a wild atmosphere where Hollywood's underbelly bubbled to the surface. These gatherings weren't just about fun, they were gateways to power and fame, but came at a price. The casting couch myth? It found some of its earliest forms right here, tangled with laughter, booze, and whispered secrets. The parties blurred work and pleasure so thoroughly that many careers began, and sometimes ended, in these shadowy rooms. Chaplan and Arbuckle's casting sessions set a twisted template for Hollywood excess that would echo for decades. Errol Flynn's legendary bashes. If Hollywood had a poster boy for wild, it was Errol Flynn. The swashbuckling star of Robin Hood wasn't just famous for his sword fights. He fought nightly battles with booze, women, and outrageous parties that became the stuff of legend. Flynn's homes were notorious for epic gatherings that pushed the limits of good taste and Hollywood decorum. Guests at Flynn's parties often described a whirlwind of laughter, music, and chaos. The actor had an uncanny ability to charm nearly everyone into joining his madcap escapades, which sometimes spiraled into unrestrained celebrations involving dozens of guests. Stories circulated about secret rooms, endless drinks, and attendees who never quite left the party sober or alone. Despite his wild ways, Flynn managed to keep his image intact, thanks largely to MGM's savvy publicity machine, which even had him pen essays on Hollywood morality to counter bad press. But behind the scenes, Flynn's parties fueled rumors and whispers about the darker, more decadent side of Tinseltown, a side he embraced with reckless abandon. Flynn's legend is a reminder that Hollywood's golden age was not just about red carpets and premieres. It was also about living fast, partying hard, and making headlines that no PR campaign could fully tame. Marilyn Monroe's private circles of influence. Marilyn Monroe is Hollywood's ultimate icon, but the stories about her private life hint at a world far more complex and raucous than her public image suggested. Monroe wasn't just the innocent blonde next door. She was part of an exclusive circle that hosted private parties where the rules of the silver screen didn't apply. Monroe's gatherings were described by insiders as glamorous, intimate affairs where Hollywood's biggest names mingled freely. The actress was known to surround herself with influential people, and these private events often turned into all-night celebrations that blurred the line between friendship and something far more daring. Behind the scenes, Monroe's personal relationships made headlines, but these parties were where the real drama unfolded. Attendees recall whispered deals, flirtations that turned into lasting affairs, and a sense of freedom away from prying eyes. It was here, away from the spotlight, that Monroe fully embraced her allure and her role as Hollywood's queen of charm. These private circles helped shape Monroe's mystique, blending power, allure, and a touch of rebellion. Her story reveals how even the most polished stars had wild nights that fueled their fame, and the rumors that followed them everywhere. Marlon Brando's adventurous social life. Marlon Brando wasn't just a legendary actor, he was also a fearless explorer of Hollywood's wild side. Known for his intense performances, Brando's personal life was equally intense, marked by a series of lavish parties where boundaries were pushed and conventions shattered. Brando's social gatherings were infamous for their mix of eccentric guests, loud music, and unfiltered freedom. His bisexuality was no secret, and his parties reflected that openness. drawing a diverse crowd that thrived on adventure and escape. These were places where Hollywood's elite could shed their masks and indulge in unrestrained fun. Despite his serious screen persona, Brando's parties became legendary for their uninhibited nature. Stories of spontaneous performances, heated arguments, and electrifying energy paint a picture of a man who lived as boldly off-screen as he did on. His gatherings became a magnet for those chasing excitement beyond the scripted world of film. Brando's lifestyle redefined what it meant to be a Hollywood rebel. His parties were both a celebration of freedom and a reflection of the turbulent, passionate man behind the camera. Joan Crawford's secret soirees. Joan Crawford's public image was polished perfection, but behind closed doors, the star's social life had a more unpredictable flavor. Crawford was known for hosting private soirees that brought together an eclectic mix of guests, both men and women, with a reputation for pushing boundaries. Her gatherings were whispered about in Hollywood circles, a place where relationships blurred and the unexpected was expected. Crawford's charm and magnetism drew people in, and her soirees were said to involve flirtations and encounters that went well beyond polite conversation. Despite her tough, glamorous exterior, Crawford's parties were a playground of emotional highs and occasional chaos. Her bisexuality, an open secret among insiders, added layers to these private events, which became escapes from the relentless pressure of fame. Crawford's secret soirees remind us that beneath Hollywood's glittering surface lay a network of private moments, wild, unpredictable, and intensely human, that shaped the legends we still talk about today. Tula Bankheads' flamboyant rivalries. If Hollywood had a wild card, it was Tula Bankhead. Famous for her sharp wit and bold personality, Tula wasn't shy about turning every party into an unforgettable spectacle. Known to flaunt her rebellious spirit, she shocked guests by openly showing off her desires and wasn't afraid to push limits, whether that meant pulling back covers to reveal surprises or sharing scandalous stories with anyone brave enough to listen. Her parties were a mix of laughter, outrageous displays, and a fearless celebration of freedom. Tula's infamous boasts about her countless lovers only added fuel to the fire, making her gatherings a magnet for those who craved excitement without filters. She wasn't just a party hostess, she was the party itself. Behind the flamboyance, Tula's rebellious nature made her a symbol of Hollywood's untamed side. These parties weren't just about indulgence, they were a statement, a refusal to play by society's rules. Tula Bankhead's wild nights remind us that sometimes the biggest stars burn the brightest and fastest. Vivian Leigh and Laurence Olivier's London Circle. When Vivian Leigh and Laurence Olivier threw a party, you knew it wouldn't be your typical soiree. Their social circle was the epitome of glamour mixed with a hint of scandal, hosting lavish affairs that brought together the theatrical elite and high society. Behind closed doors, these gatherings were as much about passion and power as they were about fine wine and music. Their parties were a playground for flirtation and intrigue, where boundaries blurred and alliances shifted with the night's mood. Vivian's intense personality and Olivier's charm created an atmosphere thick with tension and excitement. Guests often whispered about the unpredictable twists these evenings took. These events captured the essence of old-school Hollywood glamour with a modern edge, a blend of refined elegance and untamed emotion. Vivian and Olivier's gatherings were not just social events, but theatrical performances where everyone played a part in the drama that unfolded long after the curtain fell. Barbara Lamar's Flapper Frenzies. Barbara Lamar, the silent screen's wild child, was a living embodiment of the Roaring Twenties. Her parties were legendary for their uninhibited energy, filled with jazz, endless champagne, and an open invitation to break every rule. Lamar's reputation as a free spirit meant that her gatherings quickly turned into wild celebrations where anything could, and often did, happen. Guests described her soirees as electric, with music pumping and inhibitions thrown out the window. The actress, known for her striking beauty and unpredictable moods, led the charge into chaos, dancing, flirting, and laughing long into the night. Her parties became a refuge for those wanting to escape the rigid social norms of the time. Though her life was tragically short, Barbara Lamar's parties left a lasting mark on Hollywood's history, proof that the jazz age wasn't just a moment, but a wild, roaring declaration of freedom that Hollywood embraced, one night at a time. Diana Dore's Orchard Manor Extravaganzas. Diana Dors, often dubbed the English Marilyn, wasn't just a screen siren, she was a queen of scandalous fun. At her Orchard Manor estate in Berkshire, Dors hosted parties that became the talk of the town for their jaw-dropping openness and wild antics. These weren't your average gatherings. Guests could watch intimate scenes unfolding live via secret video links, turning the manor into a playground of risque entertainment. The parties blurred the lines between performance and reality, laughter and lust filling the air as guests cheered on with a mix of shock and delight. Diana's fearless embrace of scandal made her a magnetic figure, drawing a crowd eager to see just how far the night could go. Her Orchard Manor bashes symbolize a different kind of Hollywood allure, one that thrives on pushing limits and embracing the outrageous. Diana Dors showed that sometimes being the center of attention meant owning every wild story whispered in your wake. Ziggfeld Follys afterparties. The Ziggfeld Follys were the peak of theatrical glamour, but their afterparties were where the real magic and mischief happened. These backstage gatherings mixed performers, producers, and Hollywood's elite in a potent blend of glamour and excess. Known for lavish sets and dazzling acts, the Follys extended their spectacle into all-night parties that often descended into uninhibited celebrations. The after-hours scene was famous for its group encounters, fueled by champagne and a shared desire to escape the spotlight. Stories from these nights talk about unrestrained fun, where the boundaries of the stage disappeared and anything seemed possible. For many performers, the Follys parties were both a reward and a release from the intense demands of show business. These legendary nights remind us that behind every glamorous performance, there was a world craving freedom, and the Ziggfeld Follys delivered it with flair, setting the stage for Hollywood's own wild reputation. Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack's legendary get-togethers. Frank Sinatra and his Rat Pack crew weren't just masters of music and film, they were also kings of the wild party scene. Their gatherings in Las Vegas and Hollywood were infamous for combining sharp suits with even sharper indulgence. These legendary get-togethers were a cocktail of endless drinks, good tunes, and the kind of company that made boundaries optional. Guests recall nights filled with laughter, spontaneous performances, and an energy that kept everyone hooked until dawn. It wasn't just about having fun, it was about creating a brotherhood and sisterhood of rebels who lived life on their own terms. The Rat Pack's charisma made their wild escapades legendary, and their parties became a magnet for stars seeking escape from Hollywood's polished facade. Sinatra's ability to charm and command a room meant his soirees were as much about influence as they were about indulgence. Behind the slick exterior of Old Blue Eyes, these parties revealed a world of freedom, camaraderie, and the unapologetic pursuit of pleasure. Jane Mansfield's Playboy Mansion Rivalries. Jane Mansfield was Hollywood's blonde bombshell, with a reputation for turning heads and turning up the volume on fun. Her parties, especially those held at the Playboy Mansion, were the stuff of legend, lively affairs where glamour met unabashed celebration. Mansfield's magnetic personality meant these gatherings were never dull, filled with music, laughter, and plenty of mingling. The Playboy Mansion offered a playground where Jane and her guests could shed the day's pressures and dive into nights of endless excitement. These were more than just parties. They were statements, showcasing Mansfield's fearless embrace of life's pleasures and her refusal to conform to Hollywood's stiff expectations. Her revelries helped shape the Playboy era's wild reputation, blending celebrity, allure, and a healthy dose of rebellion. Mansfield's spirit lives on in stories of nights where anything could happen, and often did. Rita Hayworth's studio and society bashes. Rita Hayworth wasn't just Hollywood royalty, she was a master of mixing high society with a touch of the unexpected. Her studio and socialite parties were glamorous affairs, but behind the velvet ropes, the night sometimes took on a wilder edge. Hayworth's charm drew an eclectic crowd, from filmmakers to aristocrats, all ready to lose themselves in the moment. Guests whispered about secret rooms and private corners, where the rules of society faded away. These gatherings weren't just about networking, they were about living fully, letting go, and indulging in the kind of freedom that fame could both grant and demand. Hayworth's parties captured the duality of Hollywood glamour, the dazzling surface and the untamed spirit beneath. They remind us that even the most polished stars had nights when the spotlight dimmed and the real show began. Ava Gardner's Hollywood and music scene mixers. Ava Gardner's magnetic beauty and fiery personality made her a natural at mixing with Hollywood's elite and the music world's biggest names. Her mixers were famous for their vibrant energy and the blending of different worlds. Film stars, rubbing elbows with jazz legends and society figures. These were events where the glamour was real, but the party atmosphere was anything but tame. Gardner's passionate nature spilled over into her social life, with evenings often charged with flirtations, laughter, and unexpected connections. The mix of personalities created an electric atmosphere where anything could happen, and usually did. Gardner's parties were less about formality and more about embracing life's chaos and charm. These gatherings helped define an era where boundaries blurred and new cultural waves crashed into Hollywood's shores. Ava Gardner wasn't just a star on screen. She was a star of the wild, unforgettable night. Clark Gable's private soiree. Clark Gable's image as the King of Hollywood came with a private life just as grand. His exclusive soirees were the kind of events where the power players and socialites came to unwind and maybe push a few limits. Behind closed doors, Gable's charm worked its magic, creating a space where the usual rules didn't always apply. His gatherings were known for mixing intense conversations with easy laughter, but also for an undercurrent of tension and passion. Gable's reputation as a ladies' man and his magnetic presence meant these parties often turned into nights of intrigue and whispered rumors. Though he kept much of his private life away from the spotlight, these soirees revealed a side of Gable that was equal parts king and rebel. They remind us that Hollywood's legends weren't just figures on screen. They were complex people living vivid, sometimes wild lives off camera. Louise Brooks' Jazz Age Wild Nights. Louise Brooks was the ultimate flapper, the wild, free spirit who danced through the jazz age with a fearless grin and a devil-may-care attitude. Her parties were legendary for their mix of jazz music, endless champagne, and a no-holds-barred approach to fun. Brooks didn't just live the era. She owned it, inviting a mix of artists, actors, and bohemians to her wild nights. Guests recall nights where societal norms melted away and everyone embraced a new kind of freedom. Brooks' unapologetic celebration of life and pleasure made her a symbol of rebellion against the old guard, setting the tone for a generation ready to rewrite the rules. Though her film career was short-lived, her parties left a lasting impression on Hollywood's history, a reminder that sometimes breaking the mold is the most memorable role of all. Elizabeth Taylor's unforgettable social scenes. Elizabeth Taylor's dazzling screen presence was matched only by her legendary private life. Known for her multiple marriages and fierce passion, Taylor's social gatherings were a whirlwind of glamour and unpredictability. Her parties mixed Hollywood's finest with high society, creating an intoxicating blend of elegance and excitement. Behind the scenes, Taylor's gatherings were places where emotions ran high and connections sparked instantly. The actress's magnetic charm made every event a spectacle, filled with laughter, whispered secrets, and moments that could turn from friendly to fiery in seconds. Taylor's parties reflected her complex personality, beautiful, intense, and impossible to ignore. They remind us that for some stars, the real drama and allure happened far from the cameras, in rooms full of those lucky enough to be invited. Carrie Grant's exclusive Hollywood gatherings. Carrie Grant's suave, sophisticated image was no act. Behind the scenes, his private gatherings were exclusive affairs where the Hollywood elite mixed with a touch of mystery. Known for his impeccable style and charm, Grant's parties were the kind where conversations flowed as smoothly as the drinks. Though discreet, rumors swirled about the nature of these get-togethers, whispers of secret liaisons and blurred lines between friendship and something more. Grant's ability to navigate Hollywood's social scene with grace made his soirees sought after, drawing a crowd eager to glimpse the man behind the legend. These gatherings highlight the quiet power of allure and discretion, proving that sometimes what's left unsaid is just as compelling as the spotlight's glare. Greta Garbo's secretive social life. Greta Garbo was Hollywood's ultimate mystery, an enigma who kept her private life fiercely guarded. But beneath the veil of secrecy, some insiders hinted at a social life that was far from quiet. Garbo's rare appearances at private parties were said to be charged with a magnetic intensity, drawing in those who craved a taste of her elusive charm. Though details are scarce, Whispers of underground gatherings and discreet encounters suggest Garbo embraced a world where privacy and passion coexisted. Her rare smiles and guarded presence only deepened the allure, making her one of Hollywood's most fascinating figures. Garbo's secretive social life reminds us that not all Hollywood stories are shouted from the rooftops. Some are whispered behind closed doors, adding layers to the legend. The studio system's hidden orgies. In the golden days of Hollywood, the studios controlled everything, including the wildest parties you never heard about. Behind the polished facade, exclusive studio gatherings were a playground for stars and executives alike, where power, fame, and indulgence mixed freely. These secret events were the birthplace of many rumors and scandals, where the lines between business and pleasure were deliberately blurred. Documented in memoirs and insider accounts, these orgies were as much about cementing alliances as they were about release. For many stars, attending was less about choice and more about survival, playing the game that kept careers alive. The studio system's hidden orgies reveal a side of Hollywood where control was king, but desire was a force no contract could contain. These secret gatherings paint a picture of an industry that glittered on the surface, but hid a wild, complex world beneath, a world that helped shape the legends we still talk about today. There you have it, 20 classic Hollywood orgies that ripped the veil off the glitz and showed a side of Tinseltown few dared to admit. These wild gatherings remind us that behind every red carpet smile was a world of secret passions, power plays, and unforgettable nights. What's your take on Hollywood's wild past? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more juicy stories, and share this video because some secrets deserve to be told.